Hey folks, Lester here. Guys, Jamie and I have come to y'all so many times this hurricane and tropical storm season. We've asked you to keep us in your thoughts and prayers as we go through another round with Mother Nature. Today I thought I would take a minute to kind of show you the property layout and some of the things that we look at, some of the signs, if you will, that Mother Nature provides to help us know when it might be time to start preparing an evacuation for our babies and for our family members. So I've come back on the four-wheeler behind Dad's house. This is his back hayfield. And I'm going to show you guys sort of how we know what to look out for as far as localized flooding goes. This is not a creek usually. This is actually usually dry ground. But we do have a creek, I would say about 50 yards off in that tree line, and it runs back towards the river. And it empties into the river. Now when that creek reaches capacity, it begins to overflow. And so that comes right along through here. So this is just overflow, and as you can see, it kind of joins from this way, and it comes from this way. So that tells you how much rain we have running off into our creeks, which feed into our river. I'll go ahead and show you that now if you hold on for a second. So this is where the overflow from the creeks comes right back around over here. And it follows the flow of gravity. It'll circle right back around, and it's going to make its way into the river, which is about 25-30 yards through that tree line right there. I can't drive there from here, but I will show you. This is that spot of the river where we normally come swimming. I'll bring the boys down quite a bit, and it's usually pretty shallow right across there. It's so shallow we could actually drive our four-wheelers across if we wanted to. Right now, though, the water's quite a bit more swollen, and there's no way you're going to get across that thing without swimming. But, it's kind of neat. A lot of folks in the modern day, they use the local news, the weather forecast, and they can kind of look at predictions and radar, and they have all kinds of graphs and tables that show you what's going to happen and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, we do that as well. We listen to the news. We watch the news when it comes on at night to see what's going on in the world, and especially with weather. But it's really neat the way that there's another way that that has been used for centuries. Something that my granddad taught my dad, and then my dad taught me. You can also use what you see around you to do a lot of predicting. And so, like I showed in this video, we look at the creeks, we look at the runoff, we look at the overflow, we look at the river, and the depth of it and how high it's rising. We know there are certain notches that we have, if you will, certain checklists that we follow to know and to prepare ourselves for oncoming floods. And there's nothing wrong with science, but there is another way, the ways of our forefathers, and I'm blessed to know that. Hey, I'll tell you one more thing that I didn't mention in this video, and I hate to throw it in here at the end, but do you see the flow of the water? How it flows from the north down to the south? So check this out. We also watch the flow of the river. Now, even before the river reaches capacity, folks, even as it's rising, and it has a lot of way to go before it, overflows its banks. But we watch the flow of the water. If this water hits Lake Houston, and Lake Houston is full, it's to capacity, and it cannot run off any more water into the Gulf of Mexico. Their dams are open, and it's flowing as much as they possibly can, then this water here will start slowing down. It'll start getting real slow. It'll start going back the other way. And when it starts flowing the other way, going against gravity, that right there tells you that most likely the Gulf of Mexico has a high tide, water's pushing in. That means Lake Houston cannot drain into the Gulf of Mexico at that point. that means that the lake is full and these rivers begin to back up, as they call it. And so once this water begins to back up, then you're in trouble, because that means the creeks can't drain to the rivers. That means all the rain runoff can't flow into the creeks. And that is what we worry about. That is our biggest fear. And so we watch the river. We watch the speed of the river. We watch, obviously, the depth of the river. And there's a lot of things, man, that you can learn from talking to the old folks. If you listen, they can teach you a lot. I know what you're thinking, though. Lester, forget all that. I already forgot what you said. I don't understand half of what you said. I'll just keep watching the news. Yeah, I will too, folks. It's easier. At first, the rain drained off, but at some point it began to puddle up. And then came the river. The river at first began to back up, and then it crossed the street. At that point, we knew we were trapped inside of Plum Grove. The only way to get out was on ATV. We've seen this a few times before. As long as we had preparations and supplies, we were going to be fine until the water receded. We moved all the livestock to the highest ground possible. Even though it had stopped raining, the river was deep ice. Drone footage shows the Morrow property was an island to ourselves, completely surrounded by the river, but the water kept rising. And at that point, most folks in Plum Grove were forced to evacuate. All right, folks, so I'm going to show you in a time-lapse video how far this water has to actually come up out of its banks before it even gets up near the house. So hold on, we're going to take us a little four-wheeler ride here. All right, so as you can see, we live about a mile off the river. And so even when the river, we do get lots of rain and the river does overflow its banks, we're never going to be caught off guard. We will always have plenty of warning, and that will give us time to put our evacuation plans in place if that, ever happens again. We still have a little bit of debris and trash we got to pick up here and there. That'll happen over time. But for the most part, the animals are doing well. Grass is nice and green, still plenty to eat. We're blessed. Very blessed. A lot of folks are wondering if after stuff like this happens, if people pack up and move. You take whatever resources you can. You make sure this never happens to you again. You find higher ground. But my family's been here for the last 150 years. This land's been passed down from father to son. So you don't leave. You can't leave, it's in your blood. This is Plum Grove, Texas. There's nowhere else on earth I'd rather be.